Hello everyone, and welcome to Up and Running, Playing with Power's deck tech series that helps you get up and running with a new deck as soon as possible. This series will teach you how to pilot the deck, main win cons, strengths and weaknesses, key card choices, opening hands, what to watch out for, and how to stop it if you're against it. This video is brought to you by TCG Player, Dragon Shield, and Patreon. TCG Player gives you cards at great prices and lets you support local game stores. Dragon Shield ensures your favorite cards are protected by the best accessories in the industry. And finally, your direct support through Patreon lets us bring this to the world while giving you awesome perks at the same time. All links are in the description. If you cannot help out financially, liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing this with a friend goes such a long way as well. Today's deck is Tatyova Turns, commanded by Tatyova Benthic Druid. Tatyova Turns attempts to take infinite turns while utilizing land-based combos. It then uses those turns to draw its deck, remove all opposing permanents, and swing with an infinitely large army of creatures. So let's dive right in. This deck is an adaptive deck. It seeks to build up and survive during the early game, set up strong value engines, and then win in the late game. The biggest strength for this deck is its resilience to typical stacks and hate. Land hate and creature hate don't usually stop Tatyova. This deck sidesteps these with its high number of basics, passive abilities on creatures, and diversified win cons. You also don't need your commander to win this deck. While the game plan is slower without her, she isn't a linchpin in your path to victory. The biggest weakness of this deck is its reliance on additional draws. While Tatyova isn't necessary to win with the deck, she is critical to progressing through your deck. If your commander gets stolen or removed, or your card drawing ability is limited, you will have a difficult time closing out the game. You will like this deck if you like layered combo decks, like playing a controlling and disruptive role, and like land-based strategies. But before we go any further, let's talk about our commander, Tatyova. Tatyova Benthic Druid is a 3/3 Merfolk Druid that costs 3, a green, and a blue. Her ability is, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life and draw a card. Tatyova has a landfall ability much like many of the cards from the Zendikar blocks. The ability to draw additional cards is one of the strongest landfall abilities, especially for CEDH. So let's get into the deck. The deck aims to get ahead of its opponents with additional land drops. It will then cast its commander. It will then start drawing additional cards while playing lands. Once into the late game, it will assemble a combo to win. This deck doesn't win through your typical A plus B combo. It instead uses interchangeable parts in order to achieve victory. These parts are ramp, graveyard recursion, and extra turns. You first seek to get extra land drops. Exploration, Oracle Moldiah, and Azusa Lost But Seeking help you with this. Next comes your graveyard recursion. Cards like Crucible of Worlds and Ramanap Excavator are your main pieces. Finally, extra turn spells that are repeatable, meaning they don't exile themselves, are what help you achieve victory. These are cards like Walk the Aeons, Time Warp, and Capture of Jing Chao. These three components are good on their own, but form very strong synergies when tied together. Let's look at an example. You have Tatyova, Exploration, Crucible of Worlds, Strip Mine, and Mystic Sanctuary on the battlefield, and a Time Warp in your hand. Cast Time Warp. Sacrifice Strip Mine to destroy your Mystic Sanctuary. Play Mystic Sanctuary from your graveyard through Crucible. Sanctuary will trigger and return Time Warp to the top of your library. Play Strip Mine as your exploration land for turn. Tatyova triggers and you will draw Time Warp. Move to your next turn and repeat. This will net you infinite turns. Another example is Walk the Aeons. Cast Walk the Aeons, sacrificing 3 islands as buyback. Play those islands from your graveyard through Crucible or Ramanap, leveraging extra land drops through something like Azusa. Take the extra turn and repeat. There are multiple ways to close out the game when you have infinite turns. You can use Field of the Dead to create more and more zombies with your land drops. You can use Oko Thief of Crowns as well. Create a food on one turn and then turn it into an elk on the next turn. Then there is the most valuable card of this deck, Mystic Sanctuary. Sanctuary is very versatile and is used in most combos with this deck. Since it's an island, it can be found with fetch lands as well. You can use it with Ghostly Flicker and a mana source that produces more than 1 mana to generate infinite mana. This will even draw your deck if you have Tatyova out. It can even be used with trade routes and a Time Walk spell to take infinite turns. So how do you pilot the deck? You will want to have early disruption in the form of counter magic and stacks pieces to ensure the game doesn't end too soon. You will want to then begin getting out draw engines, setting up for the later game. Getting Tatyova out early and drawing cards from her ability is also very beneficial. Then you'll want to set up infinite turns and win. Your opening hand should have some form of interaction on the table. This could include cheap counter magic or some relevant hate piece. You'll also want to have some plan for your path forward. Are you able to rush out Tatyova and start drawing cards? What about getting out a draw engine? Many cards in this deck have overlapping uses, so finding useful cards won't be too difficult. In the early game, cast your mana rocks and hold open interaction for early win attempts. Start to use your land ramp and get ahead of your opponents. When it's safe to do so, get out your draw engines and start leaning into them. In the mid game, you should be able to more heavily lean into draw engines. Cast Tatyova and get even further ahead. We should be well protected against more of the common hate pieces. You should also have a clearer picture of which combo you can safely attempt. You can even attempt one if you have the pieces and a good opening. When we get into the late game, we should be attempting to close out the game. This could include taking infinite turns or generating infinite mana and/or attackers. Our overlapping synergies should also help us get through mostly any situation. Now that you know the main components of the deck, let's quickly go over the rest. Our acceleration comes in the form of land ramp and additional land drops. Nature's Lore, 3 Visits, Harrow, Exploration, and Azusa, Lost But Seeking all help us at every stage of the game. This deck has some Lands Matter cards that help us set up combos and trigger our landfall abilities. This includes Scape Shift, Crop Rotation, and Splendid Reclamation. As far as interaction goes, we are running plenty of the format's best counter magic. Aside from counterspells, we're running varied pieces of interaction. Cards like Oko, Thief of Crowns double as a win con. Also, cards like Narset's Reversal can pull double duty by not only copying troublesome spells, but also lets us copy our own things, like extra turn spells. We run a few stacks pieces as well for those needed silver bullets against certain opponents. In case we get disrupted or need a crucial card back, Eternal Witness and Noxious Revival give us the recursion we need. Finally, our lands are plentiful and powerful. This deck runs 37 lands. That is an unheard of amount for the typical CEDH deck. Almost half of the lands in the deck are islands or forests. This helps ensure Mystical Sanctuary comes into play untapped and that we're not too weak to Blood Moon effects. Our utility lands serve many different purposes. Cavern of Souls, the Seiju Who Shelters All, and Homeward Path protect our most important pieces. So now that you know how the deck works, what should you watch out for? Also, if you are against this deck, what should be used to stop it? Tatyova is critical to getting ahead with this deck. If someone steals her, such as with a Gilded Drake, then you'll have a difficult time continuing to get ahead. Cards that limit your ability to draw additional cards also prevent us from getting where we want to be. Narset Parter of Veils and Notion Thief are both remove on-site cards for this deck. Because we use Mystic Sanctuary in many combos, we need to get rid of any cards that negatively affect our graveyard. Rest in Peace and Leyline of the Void are cards that prevent our primary combo lines from going off. Finally, some of our infinite combos require excessive spell casting. Rule of Law, Arcane Laboratory, and Eidolon of Rhetoric prevent us from executing our infinite turn combos. We highly recommend you check out the primer, gameplay videos, and Discord on this deck. All links are in the description below. A big thanks to the curators of this deck for all of their hard work bringing this deck to the community. What do you think about this deck? What deck would you like to see next? Let us know in the comments below. If you want to see more videos like this, please consider supporting us on Patreon. You'll receive all kinds of benefits and help us bring this content to the world. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.